It is very important that you have not touched the fruit with your bare hands or any of the product.
Hone into that feeling and know that that's okay that you're feeling that, and that you're in a program with a bunch of people who are in the same boat as you.
Because it builds you as a better person, it opens you up to new opportunities.
All that and more in today's video.
Hi, and thanks for tuning in for part 2 of our Italy video. We're with our CSUIP alumni from our 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020 program. So we've got a couple of years represented here. Today, we're going to be talking about host culture, cultural adjustment, and well-being, as well as daily life. As a disclaimer, these videos are about alumni experience. So the information they're sharing is about their own stories, and so it might not be up to date. For latest program information, go to our website, csuip.calstate.edu, and that'll have all the information that you need from housing, budgeting, as well as qualifications and stuff you need to do to get into the program. So let's talk about host culture. Are there critical no-nos in Italy?
Oh yeah, when you go to the supermarket, it is very important that you have not touched the fruit with your bare hands or any of the product, picked it up with a plastic bag, taped it up, and measured and printed out the tag and put it on before you end up at the counter, because they'll just look at the apple in your hand and be like, what am I supposed to do with this? Your job is to measure out the fruit and like take all that. So we went into a store and we didn't realize it. It was like day 2 or something. And we were touching everything and they were giving us the dirtiest looks. You didn't know better. And then we eventually found out. And so that is like number 1. And I had friends visit and they did that. And it was like, no, if you're going shopping for your own food, you have to know this because it is very important.
Very good to know. Anyone else?
I would say one of them that we're probably not aware of until we get there is that we're a little loud as a country. And I'm kind of a quiet person, so I kind of wasn't okay with it. But I know people are very social and it's great, I understand, but it's, coming to a different country, they're more like low key and talking to one another with soft voices, and then they'll be kind of startled, like, why are you screaming? But it's just kind of how we come across. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Very good to know. What about mannerisms, nonverbal gestures, eye contact? Are there any do's or don'ts?
There's a lot of hand gestures, and there's even like certain hand gestures like mean certain things. I don't know. I forgot what this means, but there's a lot of hand gestures, and there's also like mannerism. Like they'll give you it's like touchy. It's like they'll give you like hugs and cheek to cheek, especially when you're like really close to like professors. I'm that person. So there was this one professor at CSU on campus I'm really close to, and I would visit her, and she would also invite her students for dinners. So it was like very, very casual, very
casual. Okay, good to know. What about eye contact?
One of the things that we have to realize is that we are coming into someone's home, and that most of the people that the locals see on a regular are tourists. So they, especially for American students, to them, we're just another tourist until you start establishing relationships with the members of your community. So if there's a local bar, like a coffee bar, go to that same bar daily. Take your espresso, have your lunch, or have something to eat. That way that you establish a connection. And once they see that you're there for the long haul, at least for that period, they are very open to you. What they don't like is strangers. And to you and to them, we are a stranger until they get to know us otherwise. So you're saying having a routine and establishing that relationship with those people, like I would have my Chinese place around the corner and I would pick up the phone and they would already know my order. They'd say, come in 15 minutes, you're good. So it's that kind of relationship that they want and that they crave. And we do too.
Very good. What about time? How is on time, not on time?
You're on
Late.
Italian time. That was something that we always joke about was if something starts at like 2 o'clock, okay, that means 2:10, 2:15. Things are never on time.
The trains tend to be on time.
Yes,
Right.
those are definitely on time.
What about for classes and official set meeting times? Were they on time or late as well?
Oh no.
I know I had an exam. Sorry. The studio exam, like in the Italian school, that we had a final exam, and our professor came in on, she was earlier on time, but then I know other professors came later, so it's just usually when they arrive, then it starts.
But I will say for the CSU campus, like be on time. Like they start things on time.
Okay.
But I agree, for studio arts, I had a professor show up like 30 minutes late on the first day. And then like another time class was canceled, but there was no notice. So it's just like, you get used to it, you know?
A lot of businesses close early too. So like at 5 dinner time, you got to make sure you get, like you're trying to go to a restaurant or something, you know, maybe go a little bit early. But yeah.
Okay.
For classes, there's like, it's normally like a sign-in sheet for Italian class. Like if you're going to the academia, you have to like fill out a sign-in sheet, and sometimes you don't notice, but you just go there and make sure you sign your name in, or you're not registered as like here.
Okay. Very good to know. What about major holidays? Different major holidays from the U.S. as well as, you know, the holidays we celebrate here. Is it celebrated differently in Italy?
Definitely, like Halloween is really big in the United States, but it's not as big in Italy. But Christmas is huge. The streets are decorated. There, like in every square, there's like a.
I grew up in the Philippines, so Christmas there is like a big thing. And as soon as September rolls around, you're already leading up to Christmas. So was it just the day of Christmas, the week before? How early is Christmas preparation?
They start decorating the streets like way ahead, like months, like 2-3 months ahead. Like they start like putting up like lights, and then
like late October, I think.
Yeah, like around that time. And then like the streets were just like filled with like, and then they start turning it on as it gets closer to Christmas.
Very cool.
Yeah, they
And
also
New Year's. New Year's was also really big in Florence. Like every single square had its own fireworks show. There's fireworks going on down every street. We were up at Piazza di Michelangelo, up on the top of the mountain for the there. It was like 15,000 people all packed together listening to the musicians up on stage. And then when it was countdown time, the entire city was like blowing up with fireworks. And it was going on like 2 hours after the ball dropped.
I'd say another one would be like Mardi Gras was one, I guess, in February, that it's probably not very popular, but they do celebrate it. Like I went there the past year, and to Livorno, which is where they held it, which is pretty close to Florence. So it was like a trip away. And it was like a big parade with all these floats and whatnot, and there were people celebrating. It was like broadcasted. So they do celebrate like those smaller ones, but not like in a lot of cities.
Okay, Elizabeth, I think you wanted to say something earlier. Oh,
sorry. Like Venice, they have an annual carnival, and you know everybody's like wearing a mask, costumes, and like although we don't have that in America, they do yearly, and I've been to it, and I can honestly say it was one of the best experiences.
Oh wow, that sounds so cool. Elizabeth, did you want to say something, or was it the New Year as well?
Yeah, I was gonna say the New Year's as well. Like it's amazing. Like they had this aerial ballet show last year. It was awesome. They do not celebrate Thanksgiving and 4th of July.
Did your CSUIP program still do something on Thanksgiving?
We
Yeah,
were
I
doing a
remember. I
potluck.
think it was I think on Christmas and Thanksgiving we had like little like a get together at school where everybody like brought their own food. It was really cute.
Yeah, that's what I've heard from other programs as well. Is like, there's always something, even if your country doesn't celebrate Thanksgiving. So, you get that little piece of home. It might not be your traditional Thanksgiving meal, but you do get a little bit of that. Next question. Does religion play a role in daily life?
Oh yeah, they're super Catholic, so you have days of like the Ascension, days of the Saints, feast days. So most of those major holidays for Italy are around the Christian calendar or the Catholic calendar.
Yeah, I would agree. But in like day-to-day life, I would say probably not, because like you have like two groups, ones that are really devout and then others that are they couldn't care. Like they're kind of over it, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So like I agree, but the holidays, they go big.
Yeah, like definitely, I agree with that. I know for sure, like my classmates, like the people I was like hanging out with at the academia, like they're not very religious centered. Like yeah, but it's more the older generation too. Like you see them at churches a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say it does relate to the.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say it relates to like my Hispanic background, like from Mexico, but, like the Catholic background. They're very reserved. I think like the grandmas and the moms. So you want to be aware of that. But the younger generation, they're like basically like how we are.
Okay.
I will say one thing real quick is if you plan on visiting a church, make sure you bring a shawl, because you don't want to show your shoulders or your knees or anything like that. Like they're very serious about that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And while we're on the topic of dress, are there, anything to be aware of in terms of dress, not to wear?
Absolutely no flip-flops outside the house. That's not a thing.
Okay, so would you also recommend on their packing list, bring closed-toed shoes?
Yeah. No white socks.
Yeah.
White socks?
White socks. Do not wear white socks. You'll get made fun of.
They dress socks, preferably. If you're wearing trousers, like dress socks, or even if you're wearing jeans, you want dark colored socks.
Okay, that is so good to know.
There's also other thing, like if you wash your hair, make sure it's dry. Because if you go out, people are gonna be like, did it rain? Like I had people ask me, did it rain? Like
Okay.
So it's not
these are like little tiny tidbits that are so good to know. I feel like I'm getting ready for my Italy trip.
Yeah.
So last point on this slide is what I think Paulina already touched on this, and what do they think about Americans? And you mentioned strangers. Anyone, and getting to know and being tourists. Anyone else have anything to add on this point?
I would say that in general, I found most of the Italians I met were very curious about my culture. And like Paulina's right, like a lot are very standoffish until you become part of that family or that system. But at the same time, I also had people who were very curious about me and like wanted to practice their English with me, so I think you get a little bit of both.
Very cool. So our next topic is cultural adjustments and well-being. We kind of already touched on medicine and doctor situation early in part one, but what about homesickness and communicating with family back home?
So I would recommend, I lived with 5 other people, so it was really good if you ever did get homesick. There was a lot of people to be able to talk to and like bounce stuff off of. As far as talking back home, I was really fortunate. I didn't get very homesick. I would call maybe once a week just to check in, ask for money, and go about my day. But living and being able to communicate with your classmates like about basic stuff, I would say is a key to staying in the loop, and also just being social helps out because then you hear about things and you're like, oh, I'm going to tag along with that and get your dopamine boost that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think the time difference can be very challenging when trying to communicate with your family, because I know I texted and called at like times that I probably shouldn't have here in America. So just taking that into consideration, and maybe just kind of having a routine with that. Like, hey, I'm going to call my family every morning, because by then it's already almost nighttime here. So just keeping that in mind.
I totally agree with Trent with what he was saying about like building community in Italy or wherever you're going, but to build community where you are, because it does make the adjustment so much easier. It does open a lot of doors. I would say also though, if you're having trouble with that adjustment, CSU IP is really good at like providing counseling services. Like there's people that are there to support you and talk to you if you find the adjustment difficult. So
definitely, I like what Elizabeth said. CSUIP does have support services depending on your campus. You might have an in-country CSUIP staff, and if not, your university will still help you out. You also still have access to the services that your home university offers. So that might be online counseling services. So take advantage. You are now covered by, you know, your host university, your home university, and CSUIP, as well as like Italy has, you know, their healthcare system. So there are a couple of things that are covering you. So be sure to take advantage of those services. Anything else on this slide?
I would say expect that there are going to be moments, I'm sure we can all attest to this, but there are going to be moments where you feel homesick, or if you're like on Instagram or on social media and you see your friends like posting about like this cool trip or this cool thing that they did. But I would say like hone into that feeling and know that that's okay that you're feeling that, and that you're in a program with a bunch of people who are in the same boat as you. But I would say also, just to help with that, just like be open with your roommates, and also pick roommates that you know you're gonna like vibe with. Like I know Paulina and I, in our house, like we had schedules of where everything was gonna happen. We would have like get-togethers. We would celebrate each other's birthdays. And I would say also make sure to take time for yourself and just enjoy just being alone and like kind of like self-assessing yourself. I know there were so many times where I would just literally leave the house and just go for a walk and just like stumble upon like a plant stand and just buy a plant, and you know, so yeah, just make sure that you're also taking care of your mental health while you're out there, and you know, calling a friend or just connecting with someone who's in Italy or wherever you're studying, because they might also be able to, you know, relate to you.
Definitely. So that's a really good point, that, you know, you have a community back home. You also want to build out that community in Italy. And something Alice is like, really, there is an emotional roller coaster ride. Just think, this is a very big thing that you just did. You are in a completely different country. I know some students go to their country without having ever visited it before. You're in a new school situation, housing, for some who, you know, worked while in country, some, you know, there's just a lot of new things, and you have to deal with a lot of the emotional things that come with that. And so there is some processing time, and you know, I'll let yourself do that adjustment. Be sure to take care of yourself. You know, seek comfort from home as well as the people around you who are, you know, physically there. I do want to mention this book, Maximizing Study Abroad. CSUIP sends this to you, and it really goes over that emotional roller coaster ride. It talks about pre-departure, your in-country experience, as well as, you know, the blues post-country when you return back home, because that is also an adjustment. So Maximizing Your Study Abroad, CSUIP will send you this book. It's a great book. Have a look at it when you get it. And with that, let's move on to our last topic, daily life. So I think it was kind of mentioned already, but weather and clothing, how was that?
The Mediterranean climate, so it's pretty similar. I'd say it's a little bit more northern than the majority of California, but the weather is pretty similar to California.
I disagree. It was raining a lot.
It didn't rain that much for us. It was cold, but it wasn't rainy.
It wasn't?
Nope.
Okay, so depending on the year, you might have a different experience. But it was mentioned earlier, like have boots, you know, have your layers depending on what season it is. What about food and drink? What was your, you know, typical meal, and where did you find it?
And there's a lot of pasta. There's like pasta, cheese, and you can find them like freshly made in the grocery stores, or anywhere.
And Trent talked about fruit earlier. Is, you know, fresh fruit common? Is it expensive?
It's super.
You only have fruit for the season, actually. Sorry, Trent. But yeah.
Chen, did you want to say something else?
Cooking.
Oh, go ahead.
I found myself cooking way more often than I ever did here in the U.S. I found myself going shopping for groceries every few days and cooking and buying small portions, and that would last me for the day, 2 days. And that was something that I wasn't really able to bring it home because it's so different here in America. But yeah, their produce is so fresh, so you go more often to the grocery store. The eggs come in much smaller packets. The milk is also pretty fresh, the cheese. So that was something that was very different.
I agree with you.
I agree with her. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Esmeralda.
Yeah, I don't think groceries is something to worry about whatsoever. It's very affordable. Like you said, Patricia, very fresh. And overall, I think the quality of food is just better than in America because it's less, what is it called? Less processed. And because you can be eating like a lot, but it fills you up like just right. Like you don't feel like I guess you can get into food coma if you want to, but like it hits different. And I think, I think if you want to go out to eat, that's also great. But like I said, food is definitely not something you should worry about.
And go ahead, Elizabeth.
Going off of what Esmeralda said, like I agree. Like if the food is great, for the markets, I think is like what Bai was saying. You get more like the seasonal fruits and vegetables, like for the outdoor markets, and then at the grocery store you can get like stuff year round. But if you do go out for dinner, like because it is pretty affordable, just remember that Italians eat later than we do, so dinner usually starts at 9 p.m. So if you're going to go out for dinner, don't expect to go at 7. They'll know you're a tourist and some places won't be open. So.
And always end your meal with what is it called? Is it a cappuccino? Always.
No, espresso.
There you go. Espresso.
11.
Yeah, all the time.
No,
well, I think that I will.
Digestion.
No cappuccino.
Cappuccino before 11 a.m.
Oh yeah, my bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
They're gonna look at you weird.
One thing that I noticed when going out for dinners, they tend to finish their entire meal. They don't get a box for leftovers, which was a mistake that I did my first week there. Was I asked for a box for my pizza. Eventually, I was able to finish an entire pizza pie by myself, and still today I'm able to do that. But that was something that I found really strange. Was when I asked for a box, the waiter was like, "Well, hold on, let me go ask the chef." And then he went to the back and he was like, "Okay, well, we'll give you a box now, but just so you know, it's tradition for you to finish your meal because otherwise they think that it didn't taste good or something was wrong with your meal."
Okay.
Don't leave anything on the plate.
Yes.
Oh, and
it's usually really good, so.
Yeah. And I would say going along with that, like the food is served a la carte. So like if you don't expect for everything to be together, usually it's sold separately. And like there are certain courses that you eat in certain order.
Yeah, and also you don't tip in Italy. The tip is included into the receipt. Another thing is there's certain things that you can't buy, like peanut butter or certain like sauces, like
Ranch doesn't exist.
if you really are gonna miss certain items, like bring them with you.
Cheetos, if you like hot Cheetos, bring them with you.
That is so true what Alice said. Like there's no like spicy food jalapenos, like salsa, nothing.
Buy little packets of tapatio and just bring them with you.
Yeah.
It's the lifesaver.
Alice,
Yeah.
did you want to say something else on that?
Yeah, like everyone is saying, if you have like specific things that you particularly like, it's probably like not common that you're gonna have it out there. I remember when I went to, I love hot Cheetos, and like that was one of the things that I brought, because I remember someone at a meeting like this told me, like, you know, bring your favorite snacks because it's probably not gonna be in Italy. But I remember I went to London one time, and they had like this whole store of American snacks, and I was like, oh my gosh, field day. And I would say also at the restaurants as well, typically like the plates are usually smaller because they're like someone was saying, it's like they really like when they're dining, like it's an experience for them. It's like you go in there and you have that 3-course meal. I know like for us it's like for people, if you're on a budget, like that's not practical if you want to go out to eat every week, but usually that's how they do it. It's like they have the appetizer, and then they have their first course, and then they're like entree, and then they have their coffee, of course, or their limoncello, depending on what time of the day it is. But yeah, so I would say expect that. If you're someone like me that you like to eat a lot, I think you also get used to like not eating a lot, because I remember like going to like get pasta one time, and there was like literally like 3 pieces of ravioli on there, and I was just like, oh, okay, so this is dinner.
Also expect to eat over the course of like 3 hours. They are very slow and methodical. Like if you're eating with Italians, they are in no rush to eat. It is all about savoring and stretching it out. Like when I had my parents come visit, and it was like, hey, we eat, Americans eat very quick, and Italians are very slow. Like it's like they said, it's an experience where you just go, enjoy the restaurant. The waiters come up and talk to you, and yeah, it's definitely a different experience.
Oh my gosh, on the subject of waiters as well, something that I noticed is that I think this is something that we learned out there, is that waiters don't come and ask you like, do you need anything else? Like you have to summon the waiter to be like, like excuse me, like can I get this? Oh, and there's no tap water. They don't give you tap water. You have to buy a bottle.
There's also many restaurants, like they don't really have like bathrooms. Yeah, that's one thing. Like if you're going out, like make sure you use the restroom before you go out.
Good to know. So we covered quite a bit with food. Let's talk about local transportation. Taxis were mentioned earlier. How do you get around?
Walk. It's small enough.
Yeah.
You can cover the entire city in about 2 hours. Crossing the cities, maybe 45 minutes. We lived in pretty much as dead center as you could get in the city. Like we lived in between Ponte Vecchio and the Duomo, like dead center there. And it was 15-minute walk to school, 15-minute walk to the train station, 5-minute walk to the Arno. Like it was, you can walk everywhere in Florence, and you're better off walking because taxis take a while. They cost. Buses are quick if you're trying to get around the outside of the city, but inside the city, because the streets are so small, they're only like an 8-person bus. They're tiny buses. So you're better off walking wherever you need to go.
A lot of people
Also walking.
As
Mobike.
Yeah, like you see the older generation biking, and you're like, man, I want to be like her when I'm older.
Tessa,
Yeah, one thing I did, aside from the bike, is I did get I used the bus often, so you can pay as you go. Like I think it's a 90-minute pass for, like, I want to say €25, or you can buy the monthly pass, which is what I went for. And I agree with Trent. In the center of the city, there are smaller buses, but once you get outside the city, they're bigger. So where I was living, I could take the big bus, and it was pretty pretty convenient. Sometimes the bus won't be there. Oh, and if you want the bus, you have to hail it like a cab. Like otherwise, they won't. They're assuming
They're
you're
not stopping.
Yeah.
Okay.
One time, like, don't do this, but like one time I was like out really late, and I would expect the bus because like they normally have a little sheet that tells you like which buses come this way and like what time. And I think I didn't hail the bus and I missed it, and in the end, like there was no more buses.
Oh no.
Just make sure like you catch it, or like they have a little like a number or something on top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Free-
Tessa, you wanted to say something else?
Yeah, I would suggest just even walking. Like it's fun to even get lost in the city because you end up in a place you've never been to, but you find like this cute little bookstore or a mask shop, or like there's so many small businesses, and if you get lost in like over the Arno, which not a lot of people go over to, but we lived by it, so we like to travel over there because there was just so many cool places to visit, and like live musics and performances, and just kind of experiencing like everyone there that lives in the city. And just to mention, because I know we mentioned like the buses and stuff, but once once the buses get really packed, it's good to have your bag or your stuff like really close to you because there's no personal space. Everyone's like literally right next to you. So pickpocketing is kind of, like in big cities that happens. So just kind of be aware of that when it gets really packed.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that happened to me when I first got there. I was with Tessa and like Maddie, and I had my bag in front of me, and I did not notice someone grabbing like my stuff until I moved back because I was like had no space, and I noticed my wallet was out,
Oh.
but nothing got stolen because my
Okay.
wallet was funky looking.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. So we're running out of time, but briefly, what do people do in their free time? What are their recreation and leisure activities?
Italy is huge on sports, especially soccer. So like a go-to is just going to a game, and the stadium really isn't that far. You can walk. So I think, if you're a big soccer fan, it's really easy to even just go to a game somewhere else. So I think just, games in general are a good like hobby of theirs.
Oh, our CSUF campus has like our own little soccer team with Refugio.
Yeah.
I was the goalie.
Yeah,
We did pretty well.
if we wanted to.
That is very cool. What about housing options?
I think the majority of people pick apartments. There are some living with host family options. They typically are outside of the city, but a lot of people end up with apartments inside the city.
Yeah.
And so did you look for your own apartments, or was it organized through CSUIP?
Did both. They had options like some of them are posted on a board for us to look at, or others are through Milligan or Florence agency, and they give you a variety of different housing. Some are really expensive, and some of them are really like in a good budget. And the ones that are posted in like the board sometimes are like 300 euros, really cheap. So make sure to look out.
Mm.
And along with that, I would say someone mentioned earlier, but I forgot. It's really good to have cash on hand because everyone's looking for housing at around the same time, so it's kind of a mad dash. If you have cash on hand, you'll get the apartment over someone else who has to go pick up money. So that's a tip. Yeah.
Have cash on hand. Excellent. What about, safety was already kind of touched upon, but what about, during breaks, what did you do for traveling? Safety situation, was that anyone solo travel with people? And, in a big city, pickpockets, things like that happen. Any other things to be aware of?
I think just keeping your head on a swivel, as long as I was aware of my surroundings, I felt pretty safe the entire time.
That's good. I really recommend traveling with like a buddy, like a travel buddy. I travel mostly with like Tessa.
It's really important to be aware, and especially, have as much as possible, have a buddy system, especially, you're in an unfamiliar place, and be aware of yourself, your surroundings, and things, people being near your food or drink. same, safety things that we do here at home in the US does still apply when we go abroad. Anyone else on these topics for daily life?
I would say also, if you are going out, make sure that you're also checking in with your roommates or your friend and like telling, like, you're all in the same boat, like I said earlier. So make sure that you're checking in with people and that you're also checking in with them to make sure that they got home safe and everything. I would also say, like, if you were like me, the first like 3 months that I was there, I didn't have a phone. I literally to this day don't even know how I survived that long without a phone, but I did. So also, like, I think it would be to your benefit to have a phone when you're out there and like activating service on that phone, just so that you can, if you get lost, you can GPS your way somewhere, or you can call a friend or anything. And service is really not that expensive when you're out there. You buy like one of those like SIM cards, and it's literally like €10 a month. And if you run over, it's like it's not that expensive to.
Is it just pay as you go, or is there
Per month.
Per month? Okay.
Yeah, it's a per month thing, and it's kind of like if you run out of data or whatever, or minutes, you just go and like refill it. I forgot.
And the school helps you set that up. So they had a big SIM card passing out like the first day pretty much, and you get a contract with Tim, you sign up, and then it's $10 a month for, I think it was 10 gigs or something like that. And then if you go over, you pay a little bit extra, but you're on Wi-Fi a lot. And honestly, even if you go over, it wasn't that bad. They have a whole app where you can download and pay mobile super easily.
Awesome. That is great to know. So that brings pretty much us to the end of this video. We talked about host culture, cultural adjustments, and well-being, daily life. Any last words of wisdom, as well as, why should somebody do this? Study abroad is such a big thing. It's a lot of financial and personal investment. It's time away from your university. Why should somebody go on study abroad?
I think it's a really great experience itself. You're able to participate in someone else's culture. You're able to explore and be open to new things. Like I never thought I would just be going to a different country and learning in an Italian school, but that mostly talk in Italian. It's a very, and I actually use like my Chinese to communicate with other Asian students, like because they do not speak English. So it's either Italian or Chinese, which is, it was just, how do I say, it's very different.
Mm-hmm. And that's a really cool thing that you brought up. You're not just communicating with other Italians, there are also other international students going on these programs. So you are really making an international community for yourself and making all these connections, not just to your host country.
Yeah, and I still keep in contact with some of my peers, like in academia. And I see how they still continue working and how things are continuously changing over there.
Yes, definitely.
I would say it also really helps you to mature as people, because anywhere in California, you're only like a day's drive away from family if you need something. While over there, you really kind of have to make it on your own. There is a support net, but it's not the support net that you would have at home. So you really kind of figure out on how to come into your own and be like, I am truly self-sufficient out here. And you really kind of get that perspective. You're like, okay, I can survive outside of college now. Because it feels like college, but it also feels more like the real world than I think most college experience is.
I agree with that, definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree with both what Bai and Trent were saying. Like, it's a very enriching experience, and like, you not only learn about other cultures, but you learn about yourself, like Trent was saying. And there's something about, living in the States, we have like a United States mentality, like, and you can go further than that and say like, you have a very Californian mentality if you live in California. but getting outside of that and being confronted with other people's worldview and perspective and way of life, it really broadens your world. And I think that it's really worth the time and the money that you invest in the program, because it builds you as a better person. It opens you up to new opportunities, and for it.
Yeah, I can't really think of any cons as to why you shouldn't study abroad, especially with CSUIP, where you can use all your financial aid. It's as if you were going to your school. If anything, it's just that, getting there and getting back. Food, affordable, social life, you'll probably will have one. And a really important thing, I think, too, is academics. I'm probably similar to others. I was able to get my European Studies minor, 2 more courses for the Italian minor, and it also applied to like my major. So I don't really see a loss here. So I think it's a great experience. And, worst comes to worst, you go, you don't like it, you can always come back. That's okay.
I was actually, because of the study abroad program and they make you take more units than normal, I was able to actually get ahead and graduate almost a full year early because of the units of CSUIP plus AP. But because CSUIP was like, hey, you have to take 35 units, I was able to score and get out early.
Yeah.
Wow.
Patricia.
I was saying a lot of people before I left often said it's very cliche, but it's very life-changing. And like a lot of you guys have said, it really is. You learn so much about yourself, about just the many opportunities that there are out there in the world. You go to places that you would have never imagined to ever visit. Things that you see in movies, like the Uffizi Gallery. Who would have thought that I would have ever been there? It's especially for I highly encourage like Latinas and women of color, first generation students. It's just such an amazing opportunity to go and see the world and just learn about yourself while immersing yourself in a different culture.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Patricia was saying, and you also get to see like how much like calmer their lives are. It's like so much like more mellow paced, and just like valuing what we normally don't do out here. Like I remember me and Paulina one weekend just randomly went to I forgot what the name of the city was. Like that's like literally like the daily city of San Francisco. Like it's like, oh well, not everyone knows that, but it was like the closest city to like Florence, and we literally just went. It was like a 15-minute bus ride, and it's so like it's such a calming experience to just be able to take weekend trips to like a different city, because travel out there even to other cities is so common. It's like, how common is it for people out here to just take weekend trips? And that's something that's really common out there that we don't normally do. Like people don't normally just like take a trip to San Diego, or and I think I value just like the culture out there, because like I said, everything is just so much more relaxed, and it's not something that we're used to here in the US. So I think I valued that aspect of it, because whereas here it's like everything is like rush, like you got to get this thing done, you got to go there, you got to do that, versus there it's like a whole different experience. And like everybody is saying, it's so cool to experience a different culture and see how other people live their lives. So definitely an experience I don't regret. Honestly, to this day, I'm like, wow, I wish I did this. I wish I went there. Like, can I go back? Like, I remember being so scared before I left, and now I'm just like, oh, can we go back?
Definitely. I think, you guys brought out so many good points. One, it doesn't have to hinder your graduation. It can actually put you ahead. You can add additional degrees, your major, your minors, double minors, to your program, as well as it just looks really great on your resume that you can say, I studied abroad. I had, if you're in the arts, I was actually in Italy, learning from these people on these like really special programs, a really great educational experience. Finances, CSUIP is really unique in that it makes study abroad affordable. There are a lot of study abroad programs out there, and a lot of it you will go into debt, and a lot of debt to be able to afford it. That isn't necessarily true. with CSUIP. I know several people, myself included, who didn't take out loans for going to study abroad. So it is doable. You know, some sacrifices, a lot of budgeting, but you are able to go on study abroad without having to go into debt. So that's finances, and all that money, as well as transferring the academics, makes it a lot easier because you process that through your CSU campus. In terms of travel and exposure, you know, when are you in your life going to have the time to take a year off and travel? And like you said, Patricia said, the weekend trips, the day trips, that was something that I learned, that you could do these trips. Or I'm sorry, did I confuse it with Alice? You're in the same column on my Zoom, and I was just like, okay, I messed up. But so there are all these advantages to study abroad. And I remember one of my friends saying, you know, why did your parents let you go on study abroad? Weren't they, you know, concerned about safety? And definitely safety is a concern. But that is, you know, safety is a very real thing, even when going to a regular college campus. But in the with CSUIP, you have that support system. You have, depending on your program, people in staff or your university who's really looking out for you, as well as all these checks and balances that really make sure to provide you with a safe environment and that support if you need medical attention, you know, the ambulance story. So there are all these benefits to studying abroad, and especially with CSUIP. Any last thoughts? You're already over time, but 1 or 2 minute last thoughts before we head out.
Super quick. I think, I don't know why it's very popular for many to wait until their third year to go abroad, but I went in as a sophomore, and I say the earlier the better, because, you know, you have more space for courses. You can fulfill GEs, upper division courses. And then also, yeah, like, it's just, I think the earlier the better.
Definitely. And depending on the program, you can do 2 years. You can study at one center, and then depending on, you know, your major and your goals, you can study abroad again. So if you're doing it earlier, you know, you might have that opportunity.
Along with what Esmeralda said, I came in, my experience was kind of unique, which is why I wanted to talk about it. I came in as a transfer student, and the campus let me transfer straight into the study abroad program. So I hadn't even taken classes on campus yet. So there's a possibility for those who are transferring into college to take it now. And then also a lot of the study abroad programs won't let you do that. Like if you haven't had campus credits yet, they won't let you study abroad. So that's another unique feature of the CSUIP program.
Yes, they will work with you, whatever your situation is.
I would say also take every opportunity that comes your way, honestly. Like just Nike it. Just do it. You know what I mean? Like if someone's asking you to go on a day trip or to go, like just like take your wildest dreams and just do it. Like if you've always wanted to go to Switzerland, go. You know what I'm saying? Or like I know there was I don't know if they still do it there, but there was like classes that this family would always host. I think they were called the Zotis, Patricia. Yeah.
The Zotis, we had people live there.
Yeah, and we also had someone in our class who also lived with them as well, but they would host like cooking classes once a month or like once every so often, and do that. Like that was awesome. They're so nice, and you know, take risks. Like even if you don't think your Italian's perfect, just try, because you know they really appreciate when you just try. That's the best piece of advice I would give.
Yeah, and I also have like a bit of advice too. Like, don't be afraid to like interact or like make friends with like other Italians, because I know like there's like this language barrier, but they know that you're trying, and many like, especially ones that like around your age, like if like, you know, if you need to do it, you could whip out like a translator and just talk to them. Do that too.
Definitely. I know for me, Google Translate came in so handy. Okay, so that is it for tonight. Thank you all for spending time and extra time to film this video. Thank you so much. We will be releasing this video and covering other countries like Ghana, Spain, the UK, so stay tuned for those videos. Thank you all, and bye.
Bye. Thank you.